Being in the job market as it is, if you're actively looking for work and so forth, it's not easy these days. And I did talk about this more in depth in the last video I did, and it's not easy out there. And it can be more like a chore when you're trying to find a job, but you just can't, find that right one that matches your interests and that you would do well in. But if you find a job or if you apply for a job and you fill out an application and you actually go through the hiring process, that can be a sign of encouragement and a step into the right direction. But you also got to keep in mind that not all jobs are created equal. And by that, you could apply for a lot of jobs where you can get like quick responses right away in the same day you apply, and you even might get a job offer within a day or two. Now, I'm a little bit questionable and I feel sketchy about those, but it just seems that when I get those job offers in front of me, I take a step back and pause because it's not what it is meant to be. It could be something much more questionable where you got to look at it from a another standpoint. And by that, what I mean is, not all jobs are gonna be meant to be good fits for you. And if you are someone who takes a job into desperation, then I think you have a much bigger problem, and it just means that you got to work on your skill set, and it's something where you have to, not take lightly. And I want to go over one example of what happened to me not too long ago, and I thought it was a little bit. I didn't feel really good about it, and that's why I wanted to explain it in more depth. So I've been applying for jobs just lately and so forth, and I happened to apply for what we call a temporary to permanent position. Uh, some people will, apply for the temporary jobs just because they need the money, right now and so forth. But in my opinion, I've been in that route before where I've been in the temporary or temp to perm jobs, and yeah, I mean, there is potential to be directly hired by the employer, but it's not taken for granted. And a lot of these temporary jobs can be questionable and so forth. And I have always had that questionable mind, going into these types of roles. Because I know if you're a contractor or if you work for an employee agency or these contractor agencies, they really don't have your best interests in mind. Let's put it that way. And so I decided to apply for one of these temp to perm roles, and uh, the day I applied, I did get a quick response from one of the recruiters at this agency. He got back to me, and he wanted to schedule an interview with me to see if I'm a good fit. So I scheduled it the same day that I applied, and then the next day afterwards, I ended up having a virtual meeting with this so-called recruiter, and he asked me a couple questions, basically just kind of screening me just to make sure that I'm a good fit for this role and so forth. It was for a call center role, and I did explain my background and so forth, and my skill set and all that good stuff. And he talked about, okay, so what he said is basically I need to record a official interview just to talk to you over some things that you are going to that the client wants to see from you or they want to hear. And so we had the recorded interview, and he asked me the questions that the client wanted, and uh, I will say that I did very well in that portion. I answered the questions well, and I thought it was pretty good. But then here's the thing: uh, once that interview ended, and he went over the next steps and so forth, we ended the call, and then about an hour later, he calls me and says, "Hey, the client wants to give you an offer. Let's go ahead and move forward if you are interested in proceeding," and so forth. And that may sound all great in that, but then what really got to me was is this guy that I was talking to, he seemed really cold, and he was like cold hearted. Didn't look like he really cared. I didn't see a lot of enthusiasm into him. He was not passionate. I mean, he seemed like someone desperate to, wanting to find someone to, fill this role. Or he looked at me as like a dollar sign or like a sale. Because obviously that's how these recruiters work. When they end up finding people to fill in roles that they need to fill for the temporary positions, that's how they get paid. And so I get it, but he didn't seem to be really passionate, and he didn't seem to, care and so forth. I think all he wanted to do was make sure that I was a good fit, and if so, then mission accomplished. So it really was something that I didn't feel good about when I was doing that interview. And then he told me that, hey, this is a temp to perm position, and there's a possibility that uh, you could get directly hired by the employer. Okay, that's nice and dandy. And so going back to after the interview, an hour later, he gave me the call, and he's like, hey, the client would like to give you an offer, and let's move forward with the onboarding process and so forth, and let's make sure that we get this taken care of. That way you start at the end of the month. And so I decided to fill out the onboarding stuff and so forth. And then somewhere in between, I read in the details that this is only going to be a temporary assignment from end of August till January of next year, which I found it pretty odd because he told me one thing earlier, that this was a temp to perm position, and he basically was, I don't know. I think he was misleading, and he seemed to be very manipulating, and I don't think he had my best interests in mind. And this goes to show that when you have someone who you meet, he's very cold, he doesn't seem to care, he's not very energetic and so forth, then that's a big problem. And when he said that it would be temp to perm, but actually it was a temporary position in the contract, then I was like, okay, you you effing liar, and so forth. And so, not that I was upset because I had a bad feeling going into it from the first place, but uh, to keep it short, the outcome is that I pretty much bowed out, and I messaged him and said, "Hey, dude, you didn't keep your word. You don't seem to care, so I'm just gonna opt out, and I'm just going to move on. So try to find some other crappy candidates that would want to fill in your role, and you know, I wish you the best. Now, I could have been more uh, disrespectful and rude to him, basically because he didn't really tell me the truth and so forth. But this is, I think, one of the worst examples of finding jobs right away you that don't really meet your interests or don't match your skill set, and then you get told one thing after the other, or it's not true. So it was not what I expected, but I also knew that I was going to be disappointed, or I had low expectations going into it. So it's not like all is lost. But I found it to be interesting, and I think that it's a good learning lesson to really make sure that whatever job that you look into, you really take the time to research it and really question what you're going into, because you may not be told the truth. And I don't know what's worse. I don't know if it's going into a job interview and you're told a bunch of things and then you're lied to, or you find a lot of these scammy jobs online where you apply for them and then you get a message saying, hey, we'd like to do an interview with you, let's do something through chat. Now, that's something that I had about over 6 years ago, and I won't get into the details, but that's even another example where if they give you a job offer right away and the pay sounds too good, or the pay is too much, then that's something that you want to uh, keep in mind of as well, or think that it may not be the best thing. So, but you got to be careful because, like I said, the job market is different now, and applying for jobs it's not as easy as it used to be. So you really gotta make sure that you narrow down to whatever jobs you want to do and so forth, and what you believe is in your best interests. And hey, I do get it that in some cases, taking a job that you don't like may be the only option that you have, but you do have to keep all that in mind as well. So, but I just wanted to go over that today. I know it was definitely something that I wasn't really fond of, and I think it's a good learning lesson as well, because it is a real good example of what can happen when you get ripped off and so forth, and it becomes a little bit of a slippery slope as well. So, but that's my lesson learned today, and it's something I want to share. And you just got to be careful out there, and that you got to look out for these signs when you're applying for jobs, or if you're in interviews and they tell you, okay, no, that's not how it is. So, but something to keep in mind of. If you enjoyed this video and you know you uh, you can relate to it and you really got something out of it, then feel free to hit me up in the comments section below. Feel free to leave a question or something that you have in mind, and then we can start a little conversation. And if you really like this video and you want to dive deeper into these topics, then be sure to sign up for my email list. You could check it out by clicking on the link below, and you can get a lot more from what I say and so forth. But that's all I got for now. And until next time, peace.